It's Cherry. Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, released in 2016 and is directed by Zack Snyder, who's directed such films like Sucker Punch, 300, and Man of Steel, and kind of Justice League. And this film stars Ben Affleck, Henry Cavill, Amy Adams, Gal Gadot, Jeremy Irons, and Jesse Eisenberg. A quick little shout out goes to my wife, Tammy Snyder-Knudsen. Thank you so much for the anniversary gift of this shirt with a nice little logo on it. This is nice and warm, nice and comfortable. I record down here in this basement that gets very cold in the winter, and that's what she wanted me to have, something to keep me warm while I'm doing this in the cold months here in Michigan. So as Superman says in this movie, this is my world, you are my world. And welcome everyone to the 200th movie review of Caleb Watches Movies. I started this just over 2 years ago, back in 2017, and this is the 200th movie review that I have done, and I gotta say, I'm proud of myself for sticking with this because I'm doing this purely for fun. I don't get paid for this. I don't do it for fame or fortune. I do it because this is a creative outlet for me, and I love talking about movies, and I love talking to people out there about movies and sharing our different opinions back and forth. So before we get into today's episode, I just want to say thank you all so much who have supported me. At the time of this recording, we are just over 700 subscribers, which is amazing to me. It is insane. I can't tell you how grateful and humble I am for the support that I'm getting out there. So thank you everyone who has taken their time for supporting this kid's hobby and for also growing this thing. 700 subscribers, that is insane to me. That is awesome. Thank you all very, very much. And just like what I did when I reached my 100th movie review, which was on The Dark Knight, my favorite movie of all time, when 200 came up, I was thinking, you know what? I think all of these milestones, I should really do it on my favorite character of all time, and that, of course, is Batman. So these milestone reviews, I mean, these are going to be happening probably once every year and a half or somewhere around there. So I'm sure we're going to have plenty of Batman films to talk about. Heck, even if we run out of them, we can do those straight-to-DVD Batman movies too. But I wanted to talk today about Batman v Superman, a movie that has sparked no debate at all, has caused no controversy whatsoever. After the events of Man of Steel and seeing how the Superman can lay waste and a path of destruction if he so choose, the Batman of Gotham City decides to take it upon himself to stop the Superman alien. And at the same time continuing from his journey from Man of Steel, Superman is still trying to find his purpose in the world that he lives in. But someone behind the scenes is pulling all of the strings that is leading these two mega icons together for one epic clash of the Titans. I'm going to start off this review by saying that I am reviewing only Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, the Ultimate Edition, not the theatrical edition that we got back in 2016. Even though that is the version that I viewed in the theater back in 2016 and that I really like that version, the Ultimate Edition is really the ultimate idea that Zack Snyder had for this movie and for this story. Plus, there's 30 minutes of extra footage that actually makes sense and that is needed in this story. The theatrical cut, it felt like the studio was making Zack Snyder cut this thing down to make it more of a Batman movie. Whereas the Ultimate Edition felt more like a Kal-El Superman story, which made his sacrifice at the end of the movie that much more powerful. So even though I like the theatrical edition, I'm recommending that everyone check out the Ultimate Edition. That is the only version that you should really see of this movie, because I love it absolutely to death. Let's wind the clocks back to 2013, where we have the release of Man of Steel, the first chapter into this DC extended universe. We're introduced to this brand new Superman who has an awesome suit. I love that costume of this Superman. But this Superman, he is brand new to the whole Superman idea. Kal-El just found out that he is an alien, like the day before he started fighting Zod, and now all of a sudden all this destruction and buildings collapsing and people obviously dying. All of this is happening when he is fighting Zod. And this led to the biggest controversy of that movie. Superman doesn't kill. Why wasn't he saving people? Correction, he was saving people, but like I said before, this was his first day as Superman. He is learning to be Superman. This isn't like Superman the movie back in 1978 when Superman just all of a sudden was Superman. No, we have an arc and a character progression and a character study. Something that's really nice to have in movies. But it sparked a whole divide when it came to Man of Steel, and I believe at Rotten Tomatoes it was sitting at around a 50%. So flash forward about a year when we get to San Diego Comic-Con and they announced that they're going to be doing a sequel, and this time, the Batman is going to show up in it. And all of us nerds online, when we heard that story, went, well, you could probably figure out what we did. But they were finally doing it. They were finally putting Batman and Superman in a live-action movie together, finally. They had been trying to do that back in the late 90s, early 2000s, before Batman Begins happened, and they were throwing out subtle little hints that they wanted to do this movie. Like in that movie I Am Legend, there was a big trailer in Times Square, a big poster in Times Square of the Batman v Superman symbol. And Batman and Superman are my two favorite comic book characters, so when I found out this was happening, it was the biggest news, and it was the thing that I was waiting for the most within that 2-3 year time period. And as the days got closer to that 2016 release date, I couldn't sleep. I was having anxiety because I was so excited for this movie. And as I was watching it, we actually watched it in D-Box. It's the only theatrical experience I've ever had with D-Box where the seats actually move when we get to the action pieces. I wouldn't recommend doing it. It really hurt my butt. But as I'm watching the movie, I'm thinking, I'm liking this. And I can just see it in my head that no one else is probably going to love this. And I was absolutely right. I believe that this movie sits at a 26% on Rotten Tomatoes, so 26% of critics actually liked the thing, everyone else hated it. Which at this point now, when it comes to Rotten Tomatoes scores, I just throw it out the window. Because my opinion on this movie is I think it is a brilliant masterpiece. It transcended the superhero genre at a time where we were getting basically very cookie-cutter-ish stories when it came to the comic book superhero movies. Here's a movie that deconstructs these two major superhero icons into just their basic forms, their basic humanistic forms. Sure, we could give you the Superman movie where he was all about truth, justice, and the American way. And yes, we could have another film about Batman about how he is taking the righteous path when he had a really, really bad day and his parents were killed. He has taken the fight to injustice and cruelty. We could give you those movies, but instead we are given a movie where we take a look into their psyche. Batman in this movie is insane. Played by Ben Affleck, who is no longer our Batman just because this movie did so poorly, and then also its sequel, Justice League, did even worse. You know, when they announced Ben Affleck as Bruce Wayne, I knew the second that it happened, everyone was like, what? What the hell? No! Get someone else! Get Josh Brolin! And there was a second where I had those same feelings, but then I thought, no, wait. This is perfect. Ben Affleck kind of portrays himself in the public eye as a Bruce Wayne figure. He comes across as douchey, comes across as a playboy, but deep down, there is some inner turmoil. His struggle with gambling, his struggle with addiction, his struggling with his marriage. All of this is internal that we typically don't see. And I thought it was perfect for a Batman, especially when it's coming to an older Batman that we hadn't really seen before. And I think Ben Affleck is great. He has that Batman jaw. I mean, how could you get away from that? And I love the choice that they make with Batman in this movie. Like I said, he is insane. And I think a lot of your normal moviegoers that only know Batman from the movies and from the animated series know about this level-headed dude that decides to dress up like a bat and go fight crime. But they fail to realize that in order to do that, in order to have that psyche and that drive to do that, you have to be a little insane. So when this version of Batman sees this alienistic figure come down and lay waste, just basically at the snap of his finger, it scares him, and his insanity just bleeds out. He had been fighting the same criminals for 20 years, and he wasn't making a change. They would keep breaking out, and he would keep arresting them, and keep bringing them back to Arkham Asylum. And it drives him insane to the point where in this movie, he starts breaking his one rule that he has. I'll get to that in a second. So he sees this figure, this thing that he can focus all of his anger and vengeance and frustration at, to the point where he feels that he can finally make a difference and finally do some good in taking out this alien. Which I feel coincides with Henry Cavill's Superman perfectly. Because in this movie, we see that Superman is learning the rights and wrongs of what he can and cannot do. And you can see him consciously weighing both of his father's ideas that they had for him. One father saw him as this iconic savior to all humankind, whereas the other saw him as, well, just a man who can make his own decisions. Whether those decisions are good or bad, they're still yours to make. And this movie explores a ton of the philosophical ideas behind Superman. Must there be a Superman? That is a brilliant question to ask. And all these questions stem from the events of Man of Steel. And this whole movie, this whole story is actually in reaction to how the audience felt at the end of Man of Steel. All that destruction, all those buildings being destroyed. We, as an audience, when we saw Man of Steel, half of us went, no, I don't want that. I don't want that from my Superman. Get him out of of here. Whereas the other half said, no, no, he was saving us. Can't you see that? So that debate that was happening in real life is infused itself into this story. We asked the question, should he be here? Do we want him here? Should he act on his own, or should he act as with a part of a government party? Do you see where I'm coming from when I think that this movie is brilliant? Because it is so layered with all these questions and all these ideas and all of these philosophies. And then you throw on top of that some amazing imagery. Say what you want about Zack Snyder. Zack Snyder knows how to move a camera and how to paint a picture with it. Now, with this being my 200th movie review, and there's a lot of aggression that I've had with people criticizing this movie over the last 3 years, that I really wanted to make sure that I got all of it in here and made my opinions known, and then you can take it however you want it. I'm just getting it out there, so I made notes here, so I want to make sure that I hit every single beat. So, note number 1, Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. Probably the aspect of this movie that universally everyone despises. The choices that he makes, looking at him, he doesn't look like our Lex Luthor. He doesn't look like Lex Luthor. We should have someone like Bryan Cranston as Lex Luthor, which was the topic of discussion around the time that he was cast. For me, on the other hand, I thought it was brilliant casting. 1, Jesse Eisenberg is a brilliant actor, but then you look at the dichotomy between Lex Luthor and Superman. Superman, of course, being the peak, the pinnacle of humanistic perfection. And when you think of those aspects, and you think of two opposing figures, how they're supposed to be opposites of each other, what's the opposite of Superman? Well, this short, little, dweeby, introverted Lex Luthor. I thought it was brilliant! And this is one of those aspects. When I watched this movie, I was thinking, oh, yep, no one's gonna love this, but you know what? I'm finding his performance fascinating. He's got a major daddy complex. Every line that he said, everything that he did was motivated by his hatred toward his father, from being emotionally abusive and being physically abusive to him. And you can tell that growing up, he grew up in this society where Catholicism was primary. So a kid going through such pain, such emotional torture, of course you look up to the skies and go, why are you doing this to me? What have I done to you? But of course, God being this metaphorical being, you can't physically harm them or take them down. But now all of a sudden, here comes Superman, the embodiment of God not helping him as a child. Once again, brilliant. I think it's an absolute shame that we will never see his Lex Luthor again. This film is too dark. Oh boy, I got that a lot. I got that from the cashier when I went to go purchase this Blu-ray when it came out. When this movie was released, everyone went out of your way, because if you liked it, they went out of your way to tell you, no, I didn't like this because it's too dark. I don't want my superheroes dark. I want them bright and sunshiny. Okay. So, one of the two primary characters in this movie's nickname is called the Dark Knight. Why can't this be dark at all? Plus, it just pissed me off. It was like, I'm purchasing this movie from your establishment. Why are you trying to convince me not to do that? Go fuck yourself. Personally, I like a little grit. I like a little darkness. I like a little controversy when it comes to my superhero movies, because you know what? We don't get a lot of that. Which is why I feel that this movie is going to be revered the farther down the line it goes. I think when people take a look back at this movie, they're going to say, you know what? This one tried to push the boundaries. We weren't ready for it. We obviously weren't ready for it, but you know what? It tried. Because there was another movie that came out a couple months after this movie called Captain America Civil War that basically had the same plot points. But because that one had humor and brighter colors, we went along with it. Next point, in this movie, Batman kills, where in the comics, he kills. He's killed before. Of course, that's a newer concept where Batman doesn't kill because it makes him more like the villain that killed his parents. But if Batman killing just turns you off to this movie, then you're saying that the most comic book accurate version of Batman is Batman and Robin, because that is the only theatrical release movie where Batman kills no one. He killed the Joker. He killed the Penguin. He killed Two-Face. He killed Two-Face again. He killed Ra's al Ghul. He killed Talia al Ghul. So if that point is something that you're holding on to, you don't have a leg to stand on. Next point, Superman is not hopeful in this movie because he is learning to be hopeful. He is learning to find the thing in his life that makes him hopeful. And he first discovers that with his imaginary conversation with his father. What was his happiness? What was his world? Well, Martha. And as we come to the sacrifice at the end, just before we find out that Lois is his world, and it's the one thing that makes him hopeful and the one thing that makes him happy. And I think that is a very humanistic characteristic. It's very hard for us as human beings to find hope and happiness. But maybe if we focus on just one thing at a time and find that one vice that keeps us happy and keeps us going, yeah, I'm hopeful after that. Next point, Wonder Woman was just shoved in here. Which, speaking of, Gal Gadot is, beautiful. Fantastic. And I loved her in Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman, of course, is the reason why this channel got started. And her performance, her arrival in this movie, is wonderful. It gets the biggest applause whenever it's shown in the theater. Oh, she's freaking badass. But a lot of people were saying, well, Wonder Woman was just shoved in here. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, really? Because I remember that Captain America Civil War film, and who was just kind of shoehorned in there with no explanation and really no resolution. Oh yeah, that's right, Black Panther and Spider-Man. 2 characters. But we went along with it because it's funny, and these actors are actually pretty delightful. Actually, that just brings me into my next point. Batman v Superman is very similar to Captain America Civil War. Originally, Batman v Superman was going to come out in May of 2016, and then Marvel said, no, we're going to take that spot. So I think Warner Brothers and DC made the correct decision and went, no, okay, let's come out in March. We're not going to divide our movie-going demographic. Both of them have our 2 major characters in the universe sparring off against each other. I've already told you my love of the reasons why they combat each other in this movie. Civil War with the whole accords and, we should be government approved, and it was kind of lost on me. And then we get to the major conflict at the airport and all the sparring back and forth when everything could have just been resolved with a simple conversation. It didn't make sense to me. Plus we have our main villain pulling all the strings behind the scenes. Lex Luthor with Batman v Superman, and then Baron Zemo for Captain America Civil War. It's the same movie! Next point, Doomsday looks terrible. Yeah, I got nothing with that. You're right on that one. Next point here, though, and I absolutely love this one, we have the best Batman fight scene in the history of Batman in cinema in this movie. That warehouse scene where he is going after Martha, it is beautiful. It is spot on. That is Batman. That is right out of a Batman Arkham game. It's wonderful. I have no words to describe it. Everyone should see this scene. And finally, the moment we've all been waiting for. The one moment of this movie that everyone has an opinion on, whether you absolutely hate it and despise it, or whether you're fully on board with it. I, of course, am on the side of fully on board with it, and that is the Martha line. Why did you say that name? I remember as a kid growing up and learning about these 2 characters and realizing that both of their mothers had the same first name. I thought that was actually kind of cool, and I also thought it was kind of lazy for the writers to do that. But if you have any shred of intelligence, you know that this movie called Batman v Superman, it's going to end with these 2 resolving their conflict with each other and becoming the world's finest. Because we haven't seen that relationship yet. You know it's going to happen. And I kept thinking about, well, they might have just like a philosophical debate or a very long conversation or just beat each other to a bloody pulp to where they respect each other. All would have been okay choices on the surface. But you know what? When it gets to psychology and when it gets to a character's motivation, you always look towards the parents. What is that character's relationship with their mother and with their father? So to have the writer, Chris Terrio, have the conflict end by saying this one word, this one name that sparks love, that sparks sadness, that sparks connection between these 2 major icons, I think it is absolutely beautiful. And I had tears in my eyes when I first saw this movie. And if any of you are looking for a more in-depth look at this moment of Batman v Superman, there is a clip out on YouTube that I strongly recommend you watch. It is from Brett Culp. It is called Batman v Superman, How I Surprised Myself and Fell in Love with This Movie. It's like a 30-minute long discussion about why this movie is beautiful and why he loves it. But he states that how this moment where Batman realizes that his arch enemy, that this person that he has been focusing all of his hatred and all of his anger and all of his vengeance at, he has a mother. He has a frickin' mother. And you know what? That mother has the same name as my mother that I remember watching die. Our mothers had the same name. Not everyone starts out as a villain. Not everyone starts out as your enemy. Something in your relationship or something in society, something that's being promoted in society, causes your mind to think, oh, no, he is the enemy or she is the enemy. But to realize that those people have families, came from families, and they have mothers, like I do. I think that is a very powerful subject to realize, that I am more like my enemy than I think I am. And I think if we as a culture and we as a world realize that, I think we wouldn't have that much hatred in the world. Immigration is one of the many big topics of discussion nowadays. Well, here is a movie, here's a situation where we are wanting this alien to be excommunicated. We don't want him here. Get him out of here. Leave us alone. We never asked for him. Everyone is focusing their hatred towards this Superman, this alien. To realize that this alien is more similar to you than you think. I think it is a great philosophical question for all of us to ask ourselves. And that's when Superman becomes hopeful and when he becomes inspiring. Because after that, Batman goes save Superman's Martha, goes save Superman's mother. And at the end of that, do you know what he says? She asks him, who are you? When it comes to Batman, what do you answer when it comes to that question? He says, well, I'm Batman. He doesn't say that. He says, I'm a friend of your son's. So you can see that this Batman changes in an instant. He is inspired by this symbol of hope and he becomes a friend of his. Wow, this felt amazing to get off my chest. I have been wanting a platform to talk about this movie for a long-ass time because I have felt so passionately about loving this movie to death, and out there, no one else does. Or at least I feel like that. And for all those people out there that are behind the release the Snyder Cut when it comes to the Justice League movie, we can really blame ourselves. You can blame the studio all you want about having Zack Snyder fired and bringing in Joss Whedon and changing everything. You can blame them all you want, but really when we get down to the essence of it, the major problem behind it is people like you and me, because we did not voice our love and appreciation of this movie back then. If we did, Warner Brothers would have been more keen on keeping Zack Snyder around. So the fact that the Release the Snyder Cut hashtag is trending and that we're showing all the support now when it comes to Zack Snyder after he's already been fired, go ahead, all the more power to you. It's not going to change a thing. But I'll save my rant on Release the Snyder Cut if someone out there recommends Justice League or if it pops up randomly here. But in the meantime, I'm so glad I got to talk about Batman v Superman. Thank you to everyone for helping me reach 200 movie reviews. I'm going to give Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice 4.5 out of 5 Blu-rays.
I think I see blue. He looks glorious.
That's right, you heard me right, 4.5 out of 5. It's not a perfect movie, but I think it's a damn good philosophical introspective of the superhero genre, and I think it's going to be revered the farther down the road that it's going to go. Alright everyone, now comes my favorite part in my videos where I pick which movie I'm going to be watching next. The next one comes as a recommendation from one of my longtime subscribers, one of my longtime co-workers, Kristen Weissner. You recommended Hocus Pocus, because this week it's Halloween, so why the heck not? Probably the greatest Halloween movie ever. Right? I put a spell on you, and now you're mine. That is not the right key at all. But this is a Halloween tradition in my house, so of course it's going to be an easy watch for me. Thank you very much, Kristen, for the recommendation. If any of you have recommendations of films that you want me to review on here, please leave a comment below this video, go to my Facebook page, my Instagram, or my Twitter. Leave your recommendation there, and if I have access to it, I will watch, review it, and give you a shout on the channel. So everyone, have you seen Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice? What did you think about it? Or if you've never seen it before and you stumbled across it because of this video, awesome. Please comment below, let me know what you thought about it. And if you like what you saw here, if you like my take on movies and my passion behind movies, then hit the subscribe button because it helps me grow this channel a lot. And if you have friends, if you have family members that love hearing people talk about movies, send them over my way and have them hit that subscribe button. And remember, if we hit 1,000 subscribers, I'm going to reward everyone out there by recording myself watching Arachnophobia, which is a movie that I never wanted to see since I was a kid because it scares the living daylights out of me. So everyone, I will see you next time with my review of Hocus Pocus. So in the meantime, be well, be good to each other, and go watch a movie. Take care, guys.